So you may be thinking, I've got stimulus, I got data on the server, I'm rendering HTML, but like, how do I actually send that data to my controller so that I can get something happening on the HTML side? Well, there's a couple ways, and let me go through them real quick. The first one is our head tag. Now, if you look here, this is the sort of a generic head tag you might see on a basic Rails application. You'll notice there's this yield head. And so that means that anywhere in the HTML that's on the server side rendered, we can have a little directive that says, submit something to this head, and then it will show up as a meta tag in here. And you'll notice that this happens a lot on the page already. So if you go here, there's a bunch of things that Rails uses. One that I often find myself using is the CSRF token, because this is used if you're going to be sending a post or a put to the server in order to prevent someone from, so CSRF is the cross-site scripting, and this just helps prevent other people from sending a request to your server without, being legitimate, if you will. So the CSRF token is one I use all the time in Stimulus controllers in order to send those fetch requests to the server so that it's authenticated and I don't get any errors. But if we've got data ourselves that we want to show up, it's actually really, really easy to kind of also add it to the head tag. So this is a real simple to-do application, but if we've got our index page here, maybe we've got an account system later on that we're going to add, and we want to provide that account ID so that when we're submitting something, or just, you might want it available, it's really easy to do. When we go to any HTML page, it's going to get rendered. We provide for the head. So now when I reload this page here, I go to the head tag, and we'll see we've got this account ID that shows up. And this is something that's available on the HTML that we can then pull inside any of our controllers. So let's just open that simple hello controller that comes from by default. And what we can do here is read that data from the let's log this so that we can just see it in the and if we just refresh this, we see the hello world, so the controller is attached. We look at the console and it pulled out that account ID. So we get that meta bit, and then we can get the value. And we see here, we've got the 1 for whatever our account is. Now, just to show you, it could be whatever value you want. You could do and now you just get a random hex number, that's kind of whatever data you want to put in the head. So this is a very powerful way to send data that's available for any of the stimulus controllers on the page to get access to. The second place we can send data is actually just attaching it to the controller. So each of these controllers has information on here that's available. I find it's not uncommon where I'm just going to add something on here. So this value, and then maybe we've got a toggle function later on that gets called. And we can just so the controller itself, it's JavaScript. You can just attach data to it, and this is very helpful. Sometimes you've got third-party libraries that have an object that's associated with it you kind of need to keep track of during the whole life cycle of the controller, and you can just tack that on here like this without any issues. Stimulus, of course, has these value properties that we can also add, and I use this all the time. These just get set on the HTML. So, for example, if I want to have a Boolean value called enabled, I've got this. Then anywhere, I can just read that value, and you'll see it gets popped in the console right there. For example, now you see it's false. Now, if I want to set this as a default, what I can do is wrap this in its own object. So we say the type is Boolean. And the default, well, default is true. And so now that appears like that. And if we go to the HTML, and if I just want to set that value, it's really easy. I say data, since it's a data attribute, hello for the controller name, enabled because that's the name of the value, and then value as a signal to stimulus that this is going to be a value. And I can set this one to false here, say that, and now you see that this is false, even though the default value is true. And you can put all sorts of values in here, depending on what your needs are. Another thing you might want to do is actually pass classes to the stimulus controller. And this happens if you want to change how things look depending on interactions on the web page. So there's a great directive for this, static classes. And then here you just provide the name. Somebody will name this the background class. And then anywhere we want to use it, and then I can set that here on this page. And again, data, because it's a data attribute, hello for the controller, it's the background class. And then we'll set this to something like BG slate 300, save that. And you can see that it gets applied. So it's getting pulled from the HTML. It's available on the controller, and then with that, I just add it as a class list to this element. So it can be used wherever you need it in your stimulus controller and wherever your interactions lead you. Another nifty way that stimulus is added for actually sending in interactivity to whatever our action is you can have params on the element or that gets fired. So for example, I've got hello here, H1 class. Let's see, let's move this up. So now it's a button. And you can see that it's firing this value right here, the data that we had previously set. Now, let's say I wanted to actually pass a parameter to this, like if it's a bunch of different buttons and there's some kind of value that corresponds to that button that should be independent of this. A great way to keep track of that state is to have that on the individual action, and then it gets passed as a param. And this is a simple thing to set up. Again, data, attribute, hello controller. Maybe we say content, and then param at the end as a signal to stimulus that what this is. Then I go to the action that gets passed, and here we use JavaScript's destructuring to pull these things out. So at the very least, you can take the event. There's a params value on the event now. So if I click this hello world button, I see the content. We see hello gets passed in there. And what we can do is even just destructure this and get the params like that. So I hope this is really helpful. And just kind of thinking about where you can put state on your stimulus controller. You know, since it's HTML and it's kind of the default isn't a JavaScript API, you might be thinking like, where am I going to get this data from? How am I going to get it? Do I still need a JSON API? You know, it's all JavaScript, so you could if you really needed to. But if you're going to be going the server-side rendered route, you've got the data available. It's just a matter of putting it in a specific structure and then just basic HTML structure and then letting that get pulled off with stimulus in a number of ways. So this is really powerful, and this lets you have really robust and interactive applications without having to do a lot of requests, without having to, again, rewrite everything in a sort of server single page application. Hope this is helpful. If you found this enjoyable, if you like this, please feel free to like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment if you got a question or there's some other thing you'd like me to go over. Thanks for watching.